You want to talk about it? I'd rather laugh about it. Let's get a little dark about it. On the Traumedy Show.
Welcome to the Traumedy Show. I'm your co-host, Rachel Wilford.
And I'm your other co-host, Megan Wilford.
And we're really excited to debut our first male guest, one of our favorite people on the planet,
Uncle Chris.
Yay!
Clap fanfare. Yeah. How do you feel being on the pod?
I'm excited.
Yeah.
I love what you're doing. So I think it's awesome that you're helping people. To me, I've always thought with what I've gone through, like if you don't speak it, you're giving those people power.
Yeah.
And so I'm really proud of you both for speaking what you're dealing with and going through and empowering other people. So yeah.
I already feel like I'm gonna cry.
I'm sure we're gonna cry. We're out here in Palm Springs for Uncle Chris's husband Ted. His 90th birthday party.
90th birthday
was last night.
It was so fun.
We've been hanging out in Palm Springs and had to take the opportunity to interview him while we're out here because he has a significant amount of trauma to talk about.
I sent them a trauma timeline.
Yeah, the whole timeline. It's this long document. He's like, here's my list of traumas for you to review before our episode.
Just
Megan and I are
light reading whenever you're like, oh my God. Trauma timeline.
I love how Megan like sort of like in her text sort of like laughed like an LOL, like trauma timeline. Oh, ha ha. And then she read it and I was like, wow. Okay. You were kidding.
Yeah, no, it really was quite the timeline. But look at you now.
Look at you now.
Right.
But look at you now. Yeah,
Absolutely
I mean, at the end of the
thriving.
day, this is a success story for sure.
Yeah, it is. Started from the bottom, now we here. Honestly.
Uh-huh.
And honestly, like because there was a time, and we'll get into it, there was a time when Uncle Chris wasn't really in mine and your lives growing up. We didn't really know him until I think I was like 15 when you kind of came back in. And then pretty quickly we realized like, oh, this guy's the coolest person on planet Earth. And then we went to our cousin Jenny's wedding shortly after that when I was like 17 and I think you were 18.
I was 18. I just graduated high school.
And I had spent a significant amount of time with you at that point because we were working the Kona Ice
We were
trucks.
working together.
We were working together.
Yeah. We were grinding to my humps at elementary schools. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's not weird. That's not weird. It's perfectly normal to be singing My Humps at an elementary school in a shave ice truck with your uncle. It's normal. But we go to this wedding and pretty quickly Uncle Chris pulls out this water bottle.
No, to set it up, you asked me.
So
you guys asked me.
We're so deviant.
So before the wedding even started, you asked,
honest.
Yes. You asked me if I would be willing to get you beers at the wedding. And I was a little bit like not uncomfortable.
After we had already like shotgunned a couple beers in the woods.
Yeah, we were trying to like drink wherever we could at any of these family functions.
I remember. Yes, there were margaritas at your dad's house, and you guys were cleaning up the dirty margies afterwards.
There were red cups around, and Megan and I just walk up, take a sip real quick, and run away.
Used margarita.
We single-handedly were culprits of the COVID pandemic. Just kidding. That was way long ago.
The backwasherita.
Oh God, yeah.
We loved the backwasherita.
You know, we're a really close family.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, but we tried so hard and we never actually really got drunk at any of those events.
No. So like it was the day before Jenny's wedding and we go to this cooler and you and I take out a single Coors Light each and then we run into the woods and we go like hunker down behind a bush and we just chug it really quick and then we walk back in the house and we're like, woo! And then we tried to get another one. We went out in the rowboat. Remember? We went out on the rowboat in this lake and we're trying to like get down on the rowboat and drink it again. And then our cousin caught us and it was a whole thing. So then we had to bring in the big guns. AKA
the
actual wedding.
So they asked me to do this and I'm like, their parents are going to be there. I don't know that I want to be sneaking them beers.
What a moral conflict we put you in.
But then I thought, if I don't do the responsible thing and get these girls some drinks, they're going to find somebody else to get them drinks. And then they'll be having actual drinks. So I took water bottles and I filled them like a quarter of the way full with vodka. Enough so that it was like 2 drinks so that like you'd be feeling tipsy, but not drunk.
Yeah.
And then I was like, and so I just told you it was vodka so that you'd drink it like it was
We thought
vodka.
it was like a handle of vodka.
And so I remember you guys were out on the dance floor, totally going crazy dancing, like as you do. And then you and Megan, I remember, came up to me. She's like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so drunk."
Because we had gone off into the forest by the creek and taken little shots. And I was teaching Megan how to take shots of this vodka.
You were teaching my Christian school ass.
Yeah, I was. Didn't we get little Dixie cups?
Yeah.
Somehow we had these tiny little Dixie cups and we put them in there as little shots. And
You're like, take a deep breath, now let it out. Go.
And I hold your nose. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was the most watered down vodka known to man.
Yes.
But
You basically had
You
2
hydrated
cocktails.
us.
Yes. I hydrated you. And I had all these things in my head. I was like, okay, if I don't do this, they might actually get drunk and then wind up in the bushes with some crazy guys and get pregnant. So I'm doing the responsible thing here.
teen pregnancy.
That's right.
Teen pregnancy for both of us.
Exactly.
You're the hero in this story.
That's
truly.
how I've written it.
Oh my God. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Honestly, our parents, I hope they're listening to this.
Yeah.
And they formally
Thank Uncle
you.
Chris.
Yeah.
No, because you and I were on a mission to get turned that
we were
wedding.
on a mission.
So
we were going to figure it out one way or the other.
And we acted like we were so drunk. In reality, barely buzzed, like maybe a little tipsy. And we always danced that way at any wedding,
Yes.
sober or not.
There's some like crazed pictures of us from that wedding where we just like our eyes are crazy.
Yeah.
Well, and that wedding, after that wedding, I was so happy that I had done it because it got really crazy. Like the groom had like a picture,
He was shirtless.
a pitcher of beer that he was downing was shirtless on top of a table, and I was like, "Wow, okay, this is a
We
wild
left early.
They are
wedding."
no longer together.
They are no longer together.
No. At least we didn't get pregnant at their wedding.
At
That's
least
right.
we didn't.
You're welcome.
We thought we'd start off the podcast with a
Well,
little.
but then another family member took the blame because
Yes.
our parents did find out. How did they?
I'm not even sure they found out or whether King told them. So my brother King is the OG black sheep because he's like 13 years older than me or something. So I don't know. He tells me like a year or two later, like, "Oh, I took the fall for you." I'm like, huh? I would have been happy to like say what I did.
Yeah.
I was proud of that.
saved those girls. So funny. Well, speaking of your brother King, do you want to just go back to the beginning and start at your childhood and our family dynamic and how many freaking siblings
We
you
have a big ass family.
Really big family.
Yeah.
I was born the youngest of 8 siblings. And I don't know if this is actually true, but I was kind of told that I wasn't supposed to have been born.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's good.
To be told.
It was an odd thing to be told.
Yeah.
But it was said in a
Who
way
told
that,
you that?
I don't even remember who told me that, but they said it in
It's
a
like,
way
I'm
like,
coming for them.
yeah, they said it in a way like,
still
"Oh, you're the
alive."
miracle child." So it was phrased in a way that wasn't like negative.
Sure.
But
Okay.
I do remember feeling like I wasn't supposed to be born. But
Oh.
so what I was told was that like my mom's tubes were tied or something, and then somehow I still was born.
Oh.
So
Because you were supposed to be
because
here.
I was the 8th child. So I
Yeah.
mean, who plans like let's have 8?
Right.
So yeah. So anyways, and then I have a brother who's 2 years older than me. We have the same parents. None of my other siblings have the sing parents. So there are 8 of us from, actually later on, 9 of us from 4 different partnerings.
9 children from 4 different people. Yes.
And 2 of those 9 are our dads.
Yes.
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 Now, but when I grew up, 2 of my siblings no longer lived with us. They were from my brother King and my sister Mary Lynn were from my dad's first marriage. They lived with their mom. And so the siblings that I grew up with that I remember the most are your parents and my 2 sisters and my brother Joe. So, yeah.
Who do you like better, my dad or Rachel's dad?
Ooh.
That's a good question.
Wow, that's a
Wow.
sassy question.
There are so many different...
Tread lightly. My dad listens,
there
and
are-
we don't think hers does
And
at
my
this
dad
point.
doesn't
So
listen to the podcast.
there are qualities that I like better about both of them in different ways.
Yeah.
It's hard to say which one I like better, but...
Political answer. I respect it.
Yeah.
if you could only save one from a burning building. Just kidding.
Then I'd say Jennifer.
My mom.
That's right, yeah.
I feel like I'd ask you.
And Jenny.
Yeah.
I'd save the Jennifer Lee in that scenario.
True.
Yes.
Both of our moms are named Jennifer Lee.
Yes.
We haven't ever said
Both
that
of our
before.
moms are named Jennifer Lee Wilford.
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah.
Born in June.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is
Their
pretty
social
weird.
security numbers are.
I'd ask you who you like better between me and Rachel, but
Why are you setting him up for these
I
uncomfortable
think you
questions?
get the same answer that I gave for my brothers.
Megan's
So-
just like, we're going full nepotism right now.
you gave a favorite. You gave a speech last night that you were the favorite niece.
That's true. Rachel
Yeah.
did. She dropped
Yeah,
that.
I did a roast of Ted like he asked for, and I started with that I am Chris's niece and his favorite, by the way. Sorry, Megan.
And she gave my partner the nickname Galo.
I compared him to Jennifer. He's the Jennifer Lopez of gay men because he's 90 years old and he looks amazing. Like he's
Yeah,
never
he
aged.
He looks like he's
And J-Lo also
70
doesn't
max.
age.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're drinking some sort of witchy elixir, and I want.
He's
I want it.
officially Galo.
He's Galo.
I love it.
I had Megan QA my roast so many times. I'm like, I don't want anyone to be offended by anything that I say. It was all positive, but like, Galo. Yes.
Okay, that was
So
a
you're married to
big
Galo.
sidetrack.
Yeah, that was a big sidetrack. So the family dynamic is Rick and Charlene got married. They had Kathy, Linda, Eric, roll John first, your dad, Eric. And then Rick and Charlene
And then
divorced.
my dad was married to his wife, and they had King and Mary Lynn.
Yes.
And they were best friends.
Yes.
So, like,
Rick and King.
Rick and King were best friends. Their kids played together, who would later become siblings.
Crazy.
Yeah.
And then Rick and Charlene split up. Rick passed away, and Charlene and King got together and got married.
Yep.
And then they had you and
They had
Joe,
Joe,
and then
me.
you. And then Charlene died, and King got with Jeanette, and
Yes.
they later had Grace.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're going to quiz
Along
all our listeners.
along a very long timeline of long time.
We need
Yeah.
AI to make like a
Yes.
family tree as
Yes,
in, like,
exactly.
Yeah.
Here's the story.
It is a little Brady Bunch. So with that, where do you want to start of your early childhood traumas?
So I would say that in recollection, I had a really good young childhood. I had something that happened to me when I was 3 that I've always known happened, but I didn't really remember the details. Like what I actually remembered my whole life was that like this event happened, and I remember the police coming and my mom driving away with me afterward, being freaked out. But I didn't remember anything about what happened.
Yeah.
But it was in my head that I knew that this happened.
Yeah.
And
3
so-
is really young too.
Yeah.
So.
So it happened in a men's bathroom at a department store. And I had been like begging my mom to not go to the women's bathroom anymore, as 3-year-old boys will do. And I always remember, going into the women's bathroom with her at church, and it was always like beautiful and couches and carpets. And then I'd go into the men's bathroom with my dad, and it was all skanky and smelly. And anyways, I wanted to go to a men's bathroom by myself. I don't know why.
Yeah.
And so I finally, I guess she let me go into this bathroom, and I was in the stall, and this guy came and knocked on it and wanted me to open the stall, and I refused. And he got on his hands and knees and was like reaching under to try and touch me. And I was kicking at his hands. And then he tried to unlock the thing from underneath. And I was kicking at it. And finally he like quit, and he got into the stall next to me and stood on the toilet.
Oh my gosh.
And was like reaching over, trying to touch me. And I do remember him touching my head.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm on the toilet with my pants down. I mean, this guy's touching me. And so I like bolted. I went to the door and I was going to grab it, but he knew that's what he was trying to get me to do.
Yeah.
So he immediately was out there to like catch me. I jumped back onto the toilet, and he got on his hands and knees again to try and like unlock. And I'm kicking and screaming, just losing my shit.
Yeah.
And finally he stopped and like went away.
Because you were screaming so much.
I was screaming.
Yeah.
And I assumed that he was still there, like waiting.
Mm-hmm.
So I wouldn't come out. And I remember like my mom calling me. She had to send like a store person in to like,
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't let him in, obviously, because this could be some crazy whatever. At that point, I just was totally traumatized as a 3-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
And so this didn't come back to me. This is like fast forwarding a little bit, but like there was a point in like when I was about 35 that I had a spiritual transformation, and I started doing all sorts of therapy work and developmental work. And as part of that, like over the last 3 or 4 years, I've been doing this thing on and off called the presence process, which is all about being present to whatever you're feeling, finding like the earlier similars, taking it back to when you were a kid so that you can sort of like de-trigger yourself to these things that we're all conditioned with or programmed with.
Yeah.
And it was then in one of these times when I was like meditating doing this, that this memory came back to me. And so it just was a repressed memory. And I remembered all of it. Like I didn't. So, and I had to like feel all these feelings all over again.
Yeah.
It was really shitty for like 3 months. I just was like dealing with depression and all sorts of stuff. It was just basically unresolved feelings from a 3-year-old.
Well, and you probably didn't fully understand what was happening when you're 3.
Yeah.
But as a 35-year-old man, you understand what was going on, and it's so much scarier.
It was like definitely terror, you know?
Yeah.
And so I've just been seeing for myself, like since then, how that affected my entire lens for viewing the world from 3 years old on.
Yeah.
So, and I didn't even know it like until now that I'm actually working through all of this stuff. I can see looking back, like I viewed my brother Joe as kind of like a bully, but when I look at other kids and see how they interact, he was just doing what other kids do. He really wasn't a bully, but in my mind, it was because it was somebody taking my choice away, taking my freedom away, which emotionally had me revert to this 3-year-old state of this trauma. And which, I mean, to me is why childhood abuse is basically the most disgusting thing in the world.
Yeah.
So it's like you do something like that and you've altered somebody's life forever.
Yeah.
So.
And go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, like, having your choice and your freedom taken away has kind of been a theme for you your whole life, honestly.
Yes.
In a lot of ways. So, yeah, it's interesting to go all the way back to that kind of like first instance of experiencing that.
Yep.
And realizing like, oh, wow, it started that early and that continued to happen to me. Bless you.
Bless you.
What were you going to say?
I'm allergic to trauma.
Yeah. Allergic to childhood.
What was I going to say? Oh, just how many people probably have a traumatic childhood experience. They forget about it, they repress it, and then they don't realize the way it might affect them from day to day. So it's actually impressive. I don't know if that's the right word, but it's commendable that you did all of this work to be able to kind of like recover that memory, which is so awful, but then to understand how it has affected your life through that lens.
Yeah.
To kind of like work through it and have a better understanding.
And prior to it coming back to me, and it's funny because I remember hearing people talk about repressed memories.
Yeah.
And I would
I have some from last
I was sort of exactly at the bar.
10th and 90th birthday party.
Or at Chill Bar.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd heard about people having repressed memories and them coming back, but I wouldn't even say that I necessarily, like I would, in my mind, probably poo-pooed it. Like, okay, whatever, that's drama. I mean, if I had something happen to me, I would remember it. And so when it actually happened to me, I was like, oh, this is, that's that. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, for sure. And I think the interesting thing is that we all, whether it's trauma as a child or not, we all have imprinted stuff that we dealt with when we were a kid. Mm-hmm. And even if it's not like child molestation, it's like, you know, maybe your parents spanking you or whatever it was that caused whatever, and you're 2 or 3 years old and it emotionally affects you this way, and your whole rest of your life you still have that lens that you're looking through. Yeah. So it's like, going back and detangling all those things.
Do you want to talk a little bit then about like kind of growing up after that and what your childhood was like in general?
Yeah. So I moved a lot after that in terms of schools. I changed schools twice. And I will say that I ended up being a little bit introverted in school.
And you grew up in San Jose.
And I grew up in San Jose. And I can see looking back why I would have been introverted because this happened to me. And so I'm scanning everywhere I go for who's going to attack me.
Yeah.
So that was a little weird moving from school to school. Even still, I would say that I had a really good childhood.
Yeah. Why did you move schools so much?
That's a good question. I'm not exactly sure.
Were you moving houses or just schools?
Just schools. Well, we moved to Canada when I was 4. My parents went to Bible college to become missionaries. So my dad had been an engineer and, you know, for I think a computer company or something. And then he decided to quit that and become a missionary. And so he and my mom went to Bible school in Canada when I was 4. We came back and bought a house. And so, you know, went to school, kindergarten, changed schools for first grade. Don't know why. Then 3rd grade, changed schools to go to 4th grade at a different school. Don't really know why.
A lot of schools.
They were both Christian schools, so I don't really know why change happened. But, you know, I wouldn't necessarily say that was super traumatic for me, but I just noticed being a little introverted. But my mom got cancer when I was 7 and had double mastectomies over 4 years. She lost tons of weight and was in a wheelchair. So for probably for the first year, she was okay. But for the next 3 years, she was mostly in and out of a wheelchair. And kind of a skeleton of herself a lot of the time.
Were you close with your mom?
I was extremely close with my mom. My mom was like my soulmate. And my dad even said to me that he had been jealous of the connection that my mom and I had. So because I don't know, we both were really artistic people. My mom read books with me. I mean, I got to the point where I was just like reading a book every single day. By the time I was in 2nd grade. And I went to the library with my mom all the time. I painted with her, and she was really into singing, and she played guitar. So it's like she just was a very vibrant, energetic, and artistic person. And we had this kind of really close connection. And in another way, my brother Joe had that kind of a connection with my dad in a different way. Like they were both mathematical, and they were both analytical and so they had a way of relating that I just couldn't ever approach, but I had that with my mom. So and so then my mom died when I was 11. I didn't get to see her before she died, which was really kind of a traumatic thing for me. 2 of my uncles Hawaii was a very special place for my mom, and she wanted to go see Hawaii before she died. She seemed like she was doing a little better, so they offered to take her, and she started doing worse. And I was up at my sister Linda's, who, by the way, is mythelonious.
And we got to see her last night.
Yes.
We got to see her.
She's helped me through a lot.
And, we love Aunt Linda. Shout out to Aunt Linda right now.
Hi, Polonius.
She's a big fan of the pod.
Yes. And so I was up at Linda's. We got the word to come back. And
how old was she at this point?
Probably 25, around 25.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So 11. You're her little brother.
I was 11, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
26 maybe, something around there.
Yeah.
And so I was like, she was crying, and I'm like, why are you crying? Mom's going to be fine.
Yeah.
And they said she was doing better. Because I remember when they left that it was like, oh, Mom's doing better. That's why we're taking her to Hawaii. In my mind, it was like, oh, Mom's doing better. I mean, she's going to get better.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I think I didn't realize what they actually meant.
Yeah.
And so So I'm the whole time home, she's crying and I'm trying to like cheer her up. And I'm being like, don't worry, mom's going to be fine.
Yeah.
And I believed it 100%. And I get off the plane, and that was back when people could actually like greet you at the gates.
Yeah.
So my dad and like 20 family members are all standing there, and we walk up to them, and I remember my dad saying, "Your mom passed away 2 hours ago." And it was, I got the shivers right there.
I know, I did too.
Yeah. I literally could feel like, or see, it was almost like seeing it. Like my whole aura shatter and just like fall like it was glass. And it was like, it was really that moment. So, yeah.
20 family members?
There were a lot of people there, yeah.
Because they wanted to be there to like tell you
they wanted us to know and to like support us.
Right.
So it was awful. We came home and she was there, and I made my dad let me see her because he didn't want me to see her, but I did, and she definitely wasn't there anymore. It was
Also traumatic.
Yeah. And so I really kind of went totally introverted at that point.
Yeah. Your best friend. I mean.
Yeah. I was, and then, okay, so this part, I'm just going to say that there are some things that happened in my teenage years with family members. And, these people aren't bad people, and we've worked through like so much together, and we're close now.
Yeah.
And so things happened in that moment, and, just like anybody in life, it's like, oh, gee, I wish I would have done that differently.
Yeah.
So anyways, my dad, right after my mom died, my dad started dating again.
Yeah.
And I mean, my mom had been in a wheelchair for 3 years. So, and I remember my sister asked him why he started dating so early. And he's like, well, I'm a missionary. I have to be married if I want to have sex again. And so it's like, so in his mind, it's like, I got to start this ball rolling so that someday I can get married, because it's not like I can just.
He wouldn't have like out of wedlock.
No.
Any sort. Okay.
Yeah. And that's the other thing.
I didn't even think of that.
Yeah. So like we grew up in super, super, super religious.
Yeah.
As both of, I don't think yours was quite as religious as mine.
No.
I
mean, our
went to
dads
really-
weren't missionaries.
No.
Yeah.
I went to a really religious school. That I talked about earlier, but just reading your experience and from what I know, it sounds like yours was even more strict.
Yeah.
Like my parents were strict, but within reason.
You guys
Like-
fully moved to Canada to go to
Yeah.
Go to Bible school. And the
Yeah.
Bible
Yeah.
school was
Different.
like, the guys have to walk on this side of the street. The girls have to walk on this side of the street.
My dad showed me the handbook for it's called Jolly Men, right?
Yeah.
The school. Yeah, he
Yeah.
showed me the handbook.
They
It's
couldn't
wild.
walk on the same sides of the street?
Yeah,
Nope.
no, they had to go to town at different times. and, like,
Okay, yeah,
different
no, mine wasn't
days.
that strict.
No, yeah. yours
I'm
was
getting
earlier.
some perspective.
Yeah. And like, I remember when I was in, I think it was in junior high, and one of the elders of the church was teaching at our Sunday school, and he was doing this whole thing on how there was a way to tell whether music was satanic or not. And if music becomes satanic when the beat is too dominant. And I'm like,
Okay, would not like EDM then.
I'm like, this is, I mean, at the time as a child, I didn't know the word bullshit, but this was bullshit.
Yeah.
I had friends afterwards who said I got mad. I don't really remember that I was mad, but I just knew it to not be true. And I was like, this is not going to stand because there's awesome music that has a beat.
Jesus loves a beat drop. Yeah. Come on.
Jesus resurrected to a good beat.
That's right.
He's
stand
up
by
there
that.
listening to Skrillex right now.
Yeah, he is.
Wow.
So it was a very hardcore church.
Yeah.
And it was definitely uber religious upbringing. So my dad started dating. I really liked the lady that he was dating.
Did he meet her through church?
He met her through his work.
Okay.
So he worked at a rescue mission, and his primary work that he and my mom both did all growing up was working with Vietnamese and Cambodian refugees to help them learn English, find jobs, find places to live. So actually, like that's one of my favorite memories growing up. Actually, was getting dropped off to be babysat by Vietnamese families.
Mm-hmm.
And I had like all these Vietnamese friends, and a lot of times I couldn't understand what was being said, but it didn't matter because they gave me this amazing like Vietnamese food.
Oh, yeah.
And we'd watch kung fu movies all day long, and I was like, this is awesome.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And at
so
your mom's funeral, weren't there just like hundreds of refugees that came to her funeral?
thousands. Yeah.
Thousands.
Yeah.
What?
There were, I think, I don't think I'm overstating this. I think there were 4,000 people at her funeral,
my
and they had to have
gosh,
an
that's got
overflow
chills.
room from the actual church.
Oh
But
my
the church set
gosh.
2,000 or 3,000 people, and they had like this whole overflow room with a video monitor. And you know, she really just touched so many people's lives.
Yeah.
Being the loving person that she was.
Yeah.
So it was. I always remember that. Like it always inspired me. Like
Totally. That's so cool.
be a loving person that would have that many people like be like, oh, I'm sad they're gone. But
It just made me so sad thinking that I don't get to meet her, but I know I will one day. And I also like feel like I kind of know her through you too.
Yep.
Knowing how much you two are
And
connected.
our dads too.
And our
Yeah,
dads. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, it was a traumatic. I mean, obviously traumatic for all of us. John and Eric
Yeah.
both had their things they dealt with, and so did Joe, my brother, my other brother. And so yeah, it was difficult. And
So he started dating.
I would say it kind of made it more difficult. Like it made a difficult situation more difficult. That he wanted to just immediately start having a different family.
Yeah.
And he'd kind of done that with his other kids, King and Mary Lynn, as well. Like when he married my mom, I wasn't alive at this time, so I didn't know any of this. I just heard this from other siblings, you know. So he was like starting a new family. And so like they got married 9 months after my mom died, I think, or 10 months after
my
mom
dad
died.
recently told me 11 months.
Yeah. I don't. So yeah, that's right. Because she died in August and they got married in July and they got engaged, I think, like 3 months after my mom died. And so
Yeah, that's
something
really,
like that.
Yeah.
That's really short.
So I just remember for me as an 11-year-old whose mom had just died, who was the closest person in my life, thinking that my dad would like step in and fill that void. Like I really honestly, and I've said this to some of my other siblings and they're like, what? Because I really honestly thought that my dad was like Superman. Like I did. And so like I thought, why is he not stepping in to fill this void?
Yeah.
Why is he going and seeking other, relationships or whatever? I remember one time, like they were, I guess, on a date or something, and they were supposed to be home. I was supposed to be picked up, and I was waiting for them, and it was like hours went by. It was at least like 2 hours, and I lost my shit. Like I went outside, and I remember picking up planters and throwing them across the driveway. But it was like rage, but it was like fright rage because clearly they were dead. Because why are they 2 hours late? But I just lost my mom. So it was like, for me.
Yeah.
So it was like this thing where it just kind of felt like my dad really wasn't there.
Yeah.
And that just kind of kept continuing. Like when they married, they didn't want us to be home. Like they got married in July, right around my birthday. And then I got shipped to my uncle and aunt's house in Spokane, Washington, who I'd never met. Like on my dad's side, I literally had never even met these people. And I'm living with them on a farm in
How long were you
Spokane.
living there?
Like a month and a half until I went back to school again.
They just like wanted
And I'm like
the space to themselves
mourning
or
my
something?
mom. They're feeding me. So they were like grief feeding me on this farm. And we would literally go through a loaf of bread every day. Because she made homemade jam, and so we'd have like a loaf of bread between the three of us every single day. These older, I mean, they were like, I don't know, I might not remember it right as a 12-year-old, but they seemed 60.
Yeah.
They might have been just 40. I don't know.
Right.
In the world? And they were who?
My dad's sister and her husband. So, and I'd never met them.
Oh,
So I was just living with strangers for a month
You're
and
like,
a half.
cool, okay.
And no kids around. So like my whole summer break from school was just living on this farm with these strangers.
I know my dad experienced a lot of rejection too when they got married, and like he tried to come home from college for summer break or something and was told like this isn't your home anymore, and he was devastated by that too, because at that point he considered your dad his dad. Like King had adopted him.
He'd adopted him legally.
So then all of a sudden like his mom had passed and now his dad was basically rejecting him and moving on with the new
and he
family.
literally was the only dad that your dad knew.
Yeah.
Because he couldn't even remember his dad died when he was young enough that he didn't remember him.
Yeah. So there's a lot of that going. I mean, I'm sure like all the siblings felt it at that point.
And I
in
didn't
different
know
ways.
that happened to your dad. All I knew is that none of my siblings were around.
Yeah.
I didn't know why.
Yeah.
So it's just like,
Was it just you
just
and
me and
Uncle
Joe.
Joe?
So did Uncle Joe come with you to that farm too?
no, Joe got sent to somebody else's home.
Wow.
And so, yeah, they like separated us.
Yeah.
And it was like they wanted to have the experience of just being newlyweds together without
God.
two kids, even though they're 11 and 13-year-olds whose mom just died.
This alone is so traumatizing. I can't imagine being that little and being like, my mom just died and now I gotta go live with these people I've never met. And none of my siblings are with me. Like I'm basically alone and just eating loaves of bread.
Yes. And then I get back as a now 12-year-old, having gained 40 pounds in a month and a half.
Oh,
God.
And like
from the bread.
and your dad was so mad. Eric, Rachel's dad. I'm pointing at Rachel. Eric was so mad at my dad for having done what he did. He was shouting at him about how fat I'd gotten. All I could think of was like, oh my gosh, my brother hates me.
Oh no.
So yeah,
Well, your aunt and uncle probably shouldn't have been giving you a loaf and a half of bread. But also, you're like, what else is there to do? I mean, it's probably grief and
Yeah.
yep.
Oh my god!
And I was
I'm
depressed
just a
at the
doughboy
time.
now.
All I wanted to do was listen to the Beach Boys for like 2 years after my mom died. I only listened to the Beach Boys like over and over and over obsessively. I'm guessing because it was happy music. I don't know.
Yeah.
And it was just like my way of dealing with grief. So I just wanted to be alone and just listen to music and do nothing else. So, so yeah, it was a lot. And then we get back from this farm. I got back from this farm. Joe got back from wherever. And the whole house is completely changed. Like all of the family pictures are taken down and replaced with all of Jeanette's family. And it's like, I'm sure if I had a conversation with Jeanette now, and Jeanette and I are really great. Like honestly now she's such a wonderful person.
Yeah.
This happened. There were a lot of things for her that I didn't know about at that time. Like she was never even told that your dads were my dad's sons. He didn't tell her that he had these other children.
What?
He only told her, she only knew about Joe and me. She didn't even know about. So that's on my dad.
She did it for how long?
Until Eric showed up at the doorstep, I think.
You're kidding.
Yeah. So
Surprise! There's these other children too.
so yeah, my dad didn't handle things very responsibly.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
So yeah, the whole everything in the house was completely different. There were no pictures of my mom. No pictures of my siblings.
That's so hard.
No pictures of anything that I'd grown up with.
Yeah.
Everything was completely different.
Yeah.
And I just remember that being like very traumatic. And both my brother and I just like locking ourselves in our room.
Yeah.
And so I think she was trying to like create a new home for us. And I really truly believe she was trying to be like a good mother, create a loving home. And this is a new start.
Right.
I don't think she was trying to be mean. You know?
No.
Yeah.
So I think it, probably traumatized her that we reacted the way that we did.
Yeah.
So
I mean, a lot of this is on your dad.
Yeah.
I mean, and we love him too. And you
Yes.
guys, he's since passed a few years ago.
he
in
passed the
2020.
first year of COVID.
Yeah. Like right when COVID started. But yeah, you guys had a good relationship.
We worked through a lot of stuff, and we never really got as close as we were when I was a kid.
Yeah.
But yeah, we worked through a lot of stuff for sure. And I always felt like as an adult, after we worked through stuff, that I could come and talk to him about anything. And he was always there to talk to. So yeah, so we definitely worked through a lot of stuff later. Yeah.
It's good.
So.
So you were 12, you moved back in.
Oh yeah,
That was the experience.
So this is the beginning of the next large trauma.
Buckle up.
Buckle up. Buckle up.
Just when you think that Uncle Chris can't have any more trauma.
Just getting started.
It's all just been a test.
This is the warm up.
That was the amuse bouche. now we're heading to the starters.
My God.
I hope you enjoyed your Caesar salad. Okay, yeah.
So I was 12 going on 13. My body was changing. Again, being super religious family, super religious church. Nobody talked about sex.
Of course.
There was no
What sex?
There was no drinking, no anything. There was no.
Yeah.
You didn't have an uncle giving you a bottle of water
I
with
did
vodka
not.
in it.
I did not have that. Not, especially as a 12-year-old. But no.
Yeah.
Can't relate.
Yeah. So I was on the religious. What was it?
The trauma of your body was
Oh,
changing.
yes, my body was
Yeah.
changing. So I found out through school what was going on in my body at junior high. And they actually told us about masturbation. It was a public school. So I'd gone from Christian schools to public schools at that time. Another change because literally after my mom died, my dad was like, do you want to go to public school? Okay. So
Interesting.
new school as well.
Yeah.
So I was in public school. They did this sex ed class. Which
Yeah.
I'm so grateful that they did.
Yeah.
Everybody should be told about these things.
Everybody
and not
should.
kept in the dark. So they actually, I remember waking up one day and being like, without being a TMI, like, oh, this is what they were talking about in that video. So,
It's a literal, universal human experience.
yeah.
Yeah. So there's
Not
nothing
anything to be ashamed about.
No. Yeah.
So, yeah. I woke up in the morning and
Wake
had
up
my
in the
first morning
morning.
wood. And so, anyhow, apparently...
This is a first for the Traumedy show.
Yes, this is a first.
We've only had women so far.
Timber. I love it.
So, apparently, Jeanette saw me masturbating.
And it was your first time?
I don't know if she saw me on my first time, but she saw me at some point
Okay.
in that time period.
Yeah.
But it was the way our house was very weird. Like I was in a totally different part of the house, but she could see from that window in the other window. And so I didn't know about it. I was in my room reading a book.
Yeah.
And just had my door open, and I heard her telling my dad that I needed to stop my job at the time, which was babysitting for families at church, because I was going to molest children.
Oh my
potentially,
gosh.
Because she'd seen me masturbating. And I was like,
ironic.
I was very, yeah. I mean, obviously, because what happened to me when I was 3, I was just raged. And so my dad, he wasn't saying much, and then all of a sudden he stopped and said, "Hold on a second," and he came back and saw me in my room and was like, "Oh crap!" And
Like that you had heard.
yeah, you could tell I'd heard. So he brought Jeanette back. We're supposedly talking it out.
Is he telling you this is something really bad and
No,
the
it
devil?
was not a
Or,
sex talk at all. I was saying, how can you say this about me? And he was defending her. And so, obviously I kept getting more and more enraged, and he was just like, oh, we were just talking about possibilities. She wasn't actually saying this. And I'm like, I heard what I heard.
Yeah.
And so anyhow, long story short, it wasn't resolved. And then the next day, I find out I need to quit my jobs and go get a new job. So in my mind, that means my dad thinks I'm going to be a child molester. Great.
Wow.
So that's kind of where I am in that moment. I got a new job as on a paper route, which was not a bad job actually for a 12-year-old, I think.
I'm kind of I didn't have a job when I was 12.
12 or 13. Yeah, it was around that time period.
Yeah.
And I happened to meet this guy on my paper route who was just super friendly, and he would constantly talk to me. And he was a married guy. He's like a grandpa kind of figure, really. And he just was nice, and we talked, and I would like tell him what was going on at home, and he ended up being somebody like over like months I would talk to. And then all of a sudden one morning I'm riding out at 4:30 in the morning, and he steps out from behind his car, like right when I get there, like surprised me. I had to slam on the brakes of my car because he was like right in front of my bike, and he just grabs my crotch, like, no, hello, how you doing? Just boom, and I froze, like I had no clue what to do.
How about that fright or flight, or like the freezing? That's a specific trauma response.
Yeah.
I can't remember what it's called. It's like freezing.
Yeah. And another thing that I could relate back to when I was 3, because I always beat myself up. Like, why didn't I do something? I could have like screamed or something, but it was like, it was literally like I went back to that 3-year-old state of just like deer in the headlights.
Yeah.
And I froze, and he took me into his backyard and did what he wanted to do with me. And I just was frozen the whole time. And then I remember after it happened, I started riding toward the place where I folded papers. I just couldn't do it. So I threw my bike down underneath this bush next to the Walgreens near our house. And I just spent hours crying and under this bush. And then I went home, and I didn't deliver papers that day, and I didn't go to school that day, and I told my parents I was sick, and I didn't tell anybody. And I didn't tell anybody for at least 2 years, but maybe 3 years. So I just held it all in.
Why do you think you didn't tell anyone?
I was ashamed, like, as is often the case, like I felt like there was some blame because like I'd known this guy, and we like talked, and I don't know, I felt like there was some, I don't know. And I was ashamed that at that point, I'd already started having attractions to men. I had, at the time, I would say I had attractions to both men and women, but I didn't know anything.
Yeah.
So you're a 13-year-old boy, and you're just feeling sexual.
Of course.
And it's not even necessary. Like, I remember, okay, this is going to be really weird.
We're here for it.
I had a poster of a Lamborghini Countach on my wall. I remember jacking off to my poster of my Lamborghini Countach on my wall. I was a 13-year-old boy.
Vroom, vroom, baby.
Hot for cars.
Yep.
Well, we all get a little hot for cars.
You know, it's all in your...
Rachel feels that way about like mac and cheese,
Hot
maybe.
Wheels,
right?
Yeah. Or might feel that way about mac and cheese. Sure. If I had a mac and cheese poster in my room, you betcha. On my way to Amazon.
So it was at the time, for me at least, you're just feeling sexual feelings, and everything is fantasy.
Yeah.
Nothing's real, because for me, I didn't know anything. No one had talked to me about anything, so I don't know anything.
Yeah.
I don't literally know what the real things even are that happened. It's just like I'm feeling these feelings and fantasizing, and hey, this feels good, right? So I don't know where I was going with that.
Well, you were talking about why you didn't tell anybody.
Yeah.
And then you were saying, well, I was already kind of guilt and shame. And
that's another thing in our church. I mean, masturbation was sin.
Yeah.
I remember being taught that too.
Yeah. And not just masturbation, but lust at all.
Sure.
Thoughts.
Yeah.
If you engage in these thoughts, that is a sin. So, like, I remember my best friend in high school and I had this journal that we were like accountability buddies on masturbation.
Oh, wow.
And so
Rachel and I.
How many times a week this week, Megan?
No, we don't do that anymore.
Every time I want to, I just call you. Melodious! I'm struggling.
help me.
Pray for me.
Help me on
Saw a
that.
picture of a Lamborghini again.
I just walked by the sexiest mac and cheese I ever saw.
Oh my God, you had an accountability journal.
Yes,
Wow.
and so we would put like a P or a J in there, and that meant either proud or jealous, because we were told.
My brain was like penis.
I know exactly.
What's the J for?
Jack off. The P was because we've been told by our youth pastor that if we were engaging in these kinds of thoughts, that we were making God jealous. Yeah.
Right.
So the P was for proud and the J was for jealous. So on days when we didn't masturbate, we made God proud. So we did a P. And on days when we masturbated, we made God jealous, so that we put a J.
Because you're only supposed to think about God.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just crying at how messed up this is on so many
Thinking about
levels.
how jealous I've made God. Our family members listening to this.
My God.
Wow.
It's so unhealthy.
Yeah.
Like, it's such a messed up worldview
It's
to be like, this is something you should be ashamed of. And
It's a
it's
lot
like,
of shame, yeah.
Yeah, it's why
Yeah.
adults grow up and have sexual repression and like,
And as like a kid who was dealing with the fact that I had attractions to men,
yeah.
I didn't think of myself as being gay, but I knew I was having these attractions.
Yeah.
And I also thought I shouldn't tell anybody about these attractions because nobody else seems to.
Yeah.
And that, surely this is bad because everything else is bad. Even just thinking about things is bad.
Yeah.
So like to me, if I told somebody about having been molested by a man, well, then that might mean like I'd be gay, and I don't want people to think I'm gay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was definitely part of it. So there was like a kind of an early thing of hiding what was going on for me from everybody, and just not coming clean about it.
I'm so pissed. Like I was tearing up when you were talking about it because it just made me so mad that they made you quit your job because they're accusing you of potentially
The irony.
molesting children. You get this other job because of that, and you as a child get molested.
Yes.
That blows my mind, and I hate it.
Yeah.
I hate it.
And the way he was grooming you for
Yeah.
that many months, really, when you were talking about being friendly and like, it's
Yeah.
really sickening.
Yep. Well,
Did he ever get in trouble or arrested or?
so I finally told a friend of one of my best friends, I think it was like my sophomore year of high school. I finally told him I broke
This
down.
was like a couple years after it happened.
Yeah, a
and it
couple
only
years.
happened the one time,
It happened twice.
Okay.
So that was another thing, was that the second time it happened, I beat myself up even more because it was this really weird thing. Like basically I wasn't leaving my home because I was scared that he lived like literally 10 houses away.
Yeah.
Down the street right in front of our house.
Yeah.
Did you quit the paper route?
No, I still had to do the paper out, but I had to drive to get to it like a whole different way that was longer.
To avoid his house.
I had to go to school a whole different way that was like way twice as long. And so this one day I was at school and this weird thing happened, and I had, yeah, I was planning like a Shakespearean play, and young me decided that I'd incorporate whipped cream pies into my Shakespeare play. So who wouldn't do that? And it got all over my clothes. And so I had to go home and change. And I got home and I changed, and I was going back to school, and I thought,
That was so gay.
I was thinking the same thing.
You've just been gay all
that's
along.
right, I haven't.
Of course you'd incorporate some whipped cream pies in your Shakespeare play. Who wouldn't do that in a
Not-
Shakespearean play?
Not only whipped cream, but dyed colored spaghetti. I don't know where that came from.
Gay as shit. It's gay. I don't know why it's gay, but it is.
It's like an early Will Ferrell elf thing. Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. Continue.
So I'm like, I need to go back to school, and I'm going to be late for my next class. So I'm like, should I go down the street where this guy lives? So I thought, oh wait, I can go into the Yellow Pages and call his house, and if he answers, I'll just hang up. So I do. I call his house. His wife answers, and I just am like, is Floyd there? As if she'd recognize my voice.
Right. Yeah.
She'd never met me.
Yeah.
So, is Floyd there? oh no, Floyd's not available. He's not here. I'm like, okay, thank you. And I'm
Yeah.
like, okay,
Phone
great.
number?
He's not there. No, I looked it up in the yellow pages.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Do you know what those are?
Yeah.
I
Rachel?
do. Yes, I do. They're the same color as mac and cheese.
Yes.
And so I'm like, okay, I go down this street to go back to school. And as I'm going by his house, he's sitting right in the picture window and sees me. I'm like, shit.
Oh my
So
gosh.
I like
He's
start,
just been waiting.
I start power walking towards school. And all of a sudden I see his car come up, start driving up behind me. And so I'm in my mind, I'm like, just say no, just say no. Just say no.
Yeah.
Say no. I'm like repeating it like on a loop, like a mantra. He gets up to me and he rolls down the window. He's like, get in. And I just got in. It was like the same thing all over again. Like I was just frozen all of a sudden. It was so, and I was just like, what is wrong with me? And
There's nothing wrong with
It's
you.
also an adult. Like, it's an authority
Yeah.
figure in your eyes, and you're scared.
Yeah.
Like, you don't know if you say no, what he's going to do.
yeah,
You know?
yeah. So, so he parked somewhere and did some stuff and then dropped me off at school and gave me $5, which made me feel really great.
Oh, God.
I ripped up the $5 and threw it away and didn't go to school at all again. So, at this point, I didn't feel things had also sort of gotten a little bit worse at home with Jeanette. Things were bad between her and my brother Joe. And I didn't know this at the time, but I found out, I think from your mom later, that she'd been dealing with some mental health issues of her own at the time because she'd never been in this situation and didn't even have all the facts given to her to even like be able to make educated decisions
She got a little bamboozled.
by my dad. So she was having her own issues and having 12 and 14-year-old kids to deal with. And so things were difficult at home. I didn't feel comfortable being out and about in my home.
Yeah.
I didn't feel comfortable going outside of my home. So I just locked myself in my room and read books all day, every day, and listened to music. And that
You
was
didn't even have TikTok
my life. No.
to scroll through.
Nope. No internet.
At least we can rot with a lot of entertainment these days.
Yep.
When you talked about listening to the Beach Boys, I just had this thought of like, wow, that's so boring. But versus the amount of like entertainment we have available to us these days. So that's like another level of, just reading books and.
You really didn't feel safe anywhere.
No,
Sucks.
except I would say I felt safe in my room.
Yeah.
And then weirdly enough on the roof. So like because that was something with Joe. And I think for Joe, honestly, my brother, he didn't know why I was locking myself in my room. He didn't know I'd been molested.
Yeah.
And so I'm like the only, he's going through the same thing that I'm going through, and our dad not being there because he's become a workaholic all of a sudden.
Yeah.
And Jeanette being stuck with us and us not feeling comfortable. And then I'm locking myself in my room. So Joe's like,
Also feeling
what the heck?
abandoned. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Joe keeps coming into my room to try and connect.
Yeah.
Like Elsa and Anna from Frozen.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, so to me, it's coming across as bullying, right? Like he's wanting to wrestle, or he had this one thing that he would do, which was the belly button dance. He would stand in the doorway.
That sounds
put
like Uncle Joe.
Yes. He'd put his pinky finger in his belly button and he would just dance around and gyrate.
I do this to Megan all
Yeah.
the time. It runs in the family, apparently.
And
No, you don't.
But I'd like to start.
like to start. And it was weird because it was almost like this, like the Chinese water drip torture.
Oh my gosh.
I'm sitting there trying to read my book, and he would just be sitting there doing this, and he would not leave.
Just doing the belly button dance.
So-
See you touching your belly button, Joe.
He's like, wow, I'm not doing anything to you. I'm just touching my belly
I'm not
button.
doing anything.
I'm just sitting here, just standing here.
That is
What?
such
Wait,
like
Soma?
brother behavior.
Totally.
Oh my gosh.
And then I'd get mad, and I'd get up, and I'd
Yeah.
try and
Things.
push him out the room, and then all of a sudden fighting would ensue. or
He just
whatever.
wanted connection.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just wanted a little belly button bonding.
Little BBB.
Nothing wrong with that.
So,
So it happened the second time.
So it happened the second time. And then, so my sophomore year, which was probably a year after the second time, I tell one of my best friends what happened. And he tells the youth pastor. And obviously then it's like, okay, well, now I need to tell my parents and everything as well. So
Yeah.
I actually remember Aunt Kathy and Uncle Paul. I'm talking about Megan and Rachel's Aunt Kathy and Uncle Paul. My sister Kathy and her husband Paul came down to like help me tell my dad because they knew what my dad's reaction would be. I didn't. But my dad flew into a rage and wanted to go beat the shit out of this guy.
Yeah.
Like literally, he was going to go down there with a baseball bat and beat the shit out of this guy.
Honestly, rightfully so.
Yeah. And so we called the police and we had this like whole sting. Like I remember being called out of class at school because like the private investigators would come and they'd be like, we need you to make a phone call and we're going to record it.
Oh, and try to beat
and we need
him?
you to try and get him to say that he did this.
Oh, shit.
And so I'm like in the dean's office at high school recording this like phone call and talking to this guy who I don't want to be talking to.
Yeah.
And he did admit it that but he said that it was like consensual. And he said,
It can't be. You're a child.
I'm a child.
Right.
And yeah, there was no consent. There was no like question asking if I wanted it
Absolutely
anyways.
not.
So yeah,
So you baited him on the phone and he admitted it on the phone.
he admitted it.
Holy
and-
shit.
And they arrested him. But
wow.
I was supposed to go to court to testify that it wasn't consensual. And
Which is just you were a child.
I was like, I could not. It sent me like that probably sent me in my first panic attack. Actually, when I really think about it.
Yeah.
The thought of facing him in a courtroom as a teenager who has gay feelings and is hiding them, like.
You're probably terrified of people thinking it was consensual.
Exactly.
Too.
Yeah.
And you're like, but
Being
I don't want
questioned on it.
I don't want to
and-
be outed in court
Exactly.
or made to think it's because of him or like it's just
Yeah.
This is not a thing anymore, right? Like, there's no way that they would make a kid come and testify and be like, I didn't want this.
Yeah.
Like
I don't know.
That
no
is
way.
so fucked.
And so then I guess because he said that it was consensual and I refused to go to court to testify, he got like 3 months in prison. And I remember every day walking to school, and there was a sign on the new route I had to walk to school to avoid him that said maximum fine for littering, 6 months in prison. And I was like,
Oh.
so I'm like worth less than trash, according to the system. It was really I thought it was pretty
It is.
awful.
It is.
So he got out of jail after 3 months.
He got out of jail after 3 months. Now, I really, like, fast forward a few years, I actually came back to talk with him. I looked him up and I was like, I want to talk to this guy.
Yeah.
Because I still was not out and I didn't know what was going on with me. And I just thought, I don't know who I can talk to about this, but maybe I can get some answers from this guy who did this to me. And so I met him at a Denny's and like we had this conversation and he literally thought, he really honestly did think that what he was doing was consensual with me. And he told me this story that he'd had somebody do this with him when he was a teenager, an older guy, and he had really liked it. And so he thought that's what we were doing. And so it was
When he
like,
told you to get in and went like that is
yeah. So, and in his mind, so I mean, that's,
he just convinced himself
pretty
that
messed-
it was
Just
consensual in
shows
order
you how
to
messed up
Yeah.
people can convince
they twist it in their head so that they can like sleep at night and
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
it's like, oh, this is
Do you know if his wife stayed with him?
No, so that's the other thing was that he lost his whole family.
good. I mean,
Yeah. I mean, they didn't.
but is he still alive? Like, I'm gonna
No,
want to go take
I'm
him
pretty
out.
sure he's not because like
Okay.
he went in prison. If you're a child molester,
Right.
you're toast.
Yeah.
So he got raped in prison and got HIV.
Okay, I don't wish that on him
wow. Okay.
either.
No,
Like,
so that's how I felt at the end of this. I was like, wow, I did not wish that on you.
Yeah.
Like, oh my gosh. So it was, so I'm pretty sure he's not alive. I mean, it was a long time ago. So,
I mean, trauma on top of trauma doesn't solve anything.
No,
obviously.
yeah, but it's-
wow.
it does show you how people
Just
who
during
don't,
the AIDS crisis?
people who don't work, it was in
The
late
80s? Yeah.
Late 80s, yeah.
Oh my God.
So they didn't even have drugs to help
No.
them at that time. Yeah.
Wow.
So it definitely had me have like some, I mean, not remorse. I didn't feel remorse that he went to prison, but it was just like
understanding, I guess.
Yeah. It
Connecting some
closed.
dots.
It gave completion to something for me. Like, don't know that I necessarily wanted to learn all that information, but I was like, okay, well, I'm glad that I don't have to live the rest of my life thinking that you're this horrible monster, even though what you did was monstrous. So
He just, twisted mind, also had trauma done to him.
exactly.
And it's,
Yeah.
people are messed up sometimes. And when they don't do the work or process or try to, it's,
It
can hurt other
definitely-
people.
It does not help to shove it down. It does not help to sweep it under the rug.
Yeah.
Talk about it.
Yeah.
Talk about it.
On a podcast with your nieces.
That's right. with your Thelonious.
Yeah, exactly. At the very least.
At the very least. Yes. So rewinding, because like I went to that, but back to where I was like when I was like 15, I guess. And I had told my friend had the whole police investigation and all this stuff. So around that time, I also decided to tell the first person that I had an attraction to men. And it was a counselor in my youth group who was, he was probably at the time, probably in his 40s. He and his wife were both counselors. Their oldest daughter was my age, and they had 2 other kids. And so we'd become close at like a camp, and not close in an inappropriate way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just, he sort of seemed like a father kind of like figure, kind of.
Yeah.
And so I told him this, and so then we, brought his wife and we all talked about it together, and then my youth pastor. So it became something that was known to at least the leadership of my youth group that I was having these feelings. And this family kind of like unofficially adopted me, which was really, I think, kind of my only saving grace at the time.
Yeah.
Like I said, I really only felt safe in my room or in my youth group. And now I had this sort of like surrogate family in my youth group.
Yeah.
And I'd go over to their house on weekends. And at one point, they actually tried to officially adopt me.
Wow.
So, because my dad, all along, they'd been encouraging me to work through things with my dad. So I was trying to work through things with my dad. I made requests. Can we have a day that we, go and do stuff just on our own?
Yeah.
Nothing ever seemed to work out. It just would always end up in something. It just, things just kept getting worse with my dad and with Jeanette. And so they asked my dad if they could adopt me, and my dad said no. I don't necessarily know. At the time, I was like, why would you say no? You're not being my dad. But I mean, obviously my dad loved me. And, he was like a confused person making his own mistakes in life, as we all do.
Yeah.
So, that was why, because he loved me.
Yeah.
And I remember like my siblings being really kind of offended that I would want to be adopted by a different family. But for me, I was like, well, you're not here either. So
Yeah.
I didn't know why they weren't there, but
It's just you and Belly Button Joe.
Me and Belly Button Joe. That's right. So anyways, this family like really, really helped me a lot. And I, through those time periods, like it was probably the darkest time of my entire life, from like 15 to 18. I definitely wanted to kill myself. I had a friend at school who was like my only friend, and we would talk about how we could kill ourselves. We were like suicide buddies. And I always wondered
that's more dark than the masturbation buddies.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we were, I always wonder what happened to her, but yeah. So
You ever try to like look her up on Facebook or anything?
That's a good idea. I could.
Yeah.
Yeah. I haven't tried that.
Mm-hmm.
Check that out. So that really was kind of my saving grace. This adopted family.
Did they encourage you, like when you came out or you told them that you were having attraction towards men? Like, how did they respond to that?
I wouldn't say that we talked about it a whole lot.
Okay.
At the time when I talked to the dad about it, you know, he assured me that it was like a normal thing. You know, people have these kinds of attractions. It's probably like my first exposure to what would later, when I go through other things around coming out as a gay man, you know, of like, you know, it's not that you have these feelings that is the sin. It's only if you act on them. Right. And so it's just kind of like, you know, so that was not a horrible response for me because it wasn't rejection. It wasn't like outing me or whatever. So
yeah. And he was actively trying to adopt you. So you felt accepted and
exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
So that was good. And I also got like involved in sports. So that kind of drew me out a little bit. I also was writing a lot of poetry and I was writing songs at this time, most of them things that made people cry, but you know, I was just processing my grief. And so that I think that definitely was sort of the start of getting into music as a creative thing as opposed to just like listening. So and then that basically was just my whole time all the way through till I graduated. And I really honestly did feel like it was never going to end. I didn't have anything to look forward to because my dad wasn't doing anything, or Jeanette wasn't doing anything to help me prepare for life after leaving. I didn't have any plans for college. No one talked about it. I didn't know anything about it. So I just decided, I was in like JROTC in high school. So I just decided I was going to go into the Army. Gay boy me.
Yeah. How did you phrase it in your trauma timeline? It was like gay boy goes to the Army or something like. I don't know. I keep forgetting that you went to the Army.
Gay boy signs up to be with a lot of boys.
That's right, exactly.
In uniform.
Group shower.
Perfect scenario for you.
What was being in the Army like?
So it was actually, I really think, the perfect thing for me at the time because it kicked my ass out of being depressed. Like there was no time for depression because you would be doing muscle failure push-ups until you threw up.
Yeah.
Great.
You know, so it was actually really good for me. It got me out of the headspace. It also showed me like I can overcome things. Like I can actually, even if something feels shitty, I can still work my way out of it.
Yeah.
And so it taught me some things like that, which was definitely a good thing for me. Like when I got out of the Army, I was no longer depressed. And I did have the mentality of, hey, I can get myself out of depression. Like I can make the decisions that will get myself out of depression. And so I mean,
It gave you like
mental
some
fortitude.
yeah.
You have control over some of that, or like the feeling of I can help myself.
I had the feeling of I can do things that will take me out of depression. But I wouldn't say it had me feel like I had control over my feelings.
Sure.
Like the feelings were still overwhelming, but I could distract myself, essentially, was what I learned. And I think that's kind of like what a lot a lot of people do, really.
Yeah.
You know, it's
They're
like,
like healthy
Survival.
well, there's healthy and unhealthy coping mechanisms, but like exercise has always been extremely important for me to get out of my head or if I'm in a slump. So
Yeah.
I can understand. I haven't joined the Army.
you get lots
Never
of
too late,
exercise.
Thelonious. Next episode of the podcast, Megan
think
joins the
it's
Army.
a little too late for me to join the Army.
Theater girl joins the Army.
Let's go, boys.
Following in their uncle's footsteps.
I feel like we join the Army every time we go to JD's.
Oh, this morning I felt like I was preparing for battle. I told you so. Waking up hungover.
Every time I wake up after a morning out.
preparing for battle.
Yeah. It's probably just as bad as training for the army, no?
Totally.
We're out here in the trenches. Okay, so you
Get back
actually
from the
are in the army.
That's
Yes.
right. Yes. Yeah. No, I was in the army, and it was a good experience. I had this one. The basic training was definitely the physically hardest thing I ever had to do. It was. I didn't find out until later that it was an experimental basic training, and it was like there were 3 simultaneous basic trainings running at the time: 1 easy, 1 medium, and 1 hard. And I was in the hard one.
What?
And they were
Why
like,
did they put the gay boy in the easy one?
no, really. We could have done like arts and crafts in that one.
He's like, I do Shakespearean plays with whipped cream and pies. I'd like to be in the easy one, please. I'm not equipped for this hard shit.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
It's ridiculous.
Oh, yeah. So, but I have a funny story like after basic training. So we got through basic training, and I'm in advanced training, which is in San Antonio, Texas. And we could have things like Walkmans or stuff like that in advanced training. Couldn't have anything at all in basic. And so we went to this water park as like an excursion, and I had my Walkman with me. This ties into kind of last night's concert. And I left my Walkman on the bus. So the drill sergeant comes off with my Walkman in his hand, and he says, "Somebody left their Walkman on the bus. It has Phantom of the Opera in it." And I'm like, "That's mine."
You're in the army listening to Phantom of
He
the
just
Opera.
outed you in front of everybody.
Yeah, literally. Come out of the closet. It's time.
Come out, wherever you are.
And so Uncle Chris sang some Phantom of the Opera last night
Yes.
at Ted's birthday
Ted's
party.
request.
Sure
Yes.
did.
Wow, full
That's
circle.
So great. Wow.
So yeah, so I got out of the army, and
How
I
long
didn't-
were you in the army? A couple years?
at the time that I joined, you could do training and then go right into reserves without having to do full-time service. So I did like a year's worth of training, and then when I got out, it was just like full-time reserves. So I was back to San Jose, didn't really know what I was going to do. I knew that the reason I went into the army was because I thought it was my only path to college. So I wanted to be a psychologist because I wanted to help people deal with all the trauma that I'd been going through. So that's definitely been a theme of mine. I would say my whole adult life is wanting to do something with whatever it is that happened to me and help other people.
Yeah.
So that's why I have so much respect for what you guys are doing with your podcast as well. So it's, yeah. So
Turns out we do take after our uncle.
so that was when I moved to Boise to watch The Little Mermaid 100 times with Megan and her sister.
Yay! Now I enter the picture.
Yay.
How old was I?
The real trauma.
This is the entree trauma.
The entree trauma.
Was I the cutest one of my siblings?
Yeah, of course you were a baby.
Was. Emphasis on was.
Yes, she was a baby. A baby.
I was a wee baby.
Yes.
And we were watching Little Mermaid all the time.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
It was like every single time that anything was, sitting down, Little Mermaid. Yeah. I had it like on loop memorized for sure.
Perfect.
Yes. So I moved to Boise, and strangely enough, I moved from the Bay Area to Boise to start experimenting with gay sex.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did the same. Just kidding. Anyway.
As one does in Boise, Idaho.
Boise, Idaho. Yes.
That's why so many of our family members have moved there
That's
recently.
right. Yeah.
The tagline, Boise, where the gays live.
Where you go to get more gay.
Where the gays live.
Boise, where you go to be with boys.
There you go. The Boys of Boise. Hey, that's actually a thing. There's actually a thing called the Boys of Boise. It's a historical look. Yeah. Look.
Is it gay?
Yeah. I think it was like persecution of gays.
Oh, shit.
I think. I might be wrong, but you can Google it, Boys of Boise, and it'll pop
Boise is unfortunately not very progressive in I would imagine at that time too.
way more progressive now than it was then.
I'm sure.
There wasn't a gay bar then, and now there is.
How'd you find the gays?
Yeah, I found
You're like in Idaho, like
Was it like you put ads in the paper?
in the newspaper.
Yeah.
Yes, that was
Okay.
that we didn't have the internet still.
Holy shit.
And so
I'm
yeah,
obsessed
ad
with
in the
this
newspaper.
before Hinge.
He's like, I'm a journalist.
He's like, I'm looking for. It's just some journalism or investigative journalism.
It is, yes.
Yes,
He's
that's right.
investigating.
Yes, Mhm. But you had to be like surreptitious about how you said it. You couldn't be like
Was this in
Looking
the
for a
freaking
man in finance.
single male looking for another single male because you'd get gay bashed in Boise, Idaho.
Yeah.
So it was like you had to sort of like phrase it in a way of like
Yeah.
looking for another friend who's into Broadway.
Phantom of the Opera.
Phantom of the Opera.
Preferably male.
And whipped cream pies and Shakespearean plays.
Could you not were people just a lot more closeted too? Like in general, like what time is this? Like 1995?
So
I mean, I'm born in
You're
94,
born,
so
yeah, it would have been 1995.
so there were probably not that many like flamboyant gay men in Boise, a very conservative religious city.
No, yeah. And not only that, but I still wasn't out. So
Right.
If I had been out, maybe I would have found something. But
Yeah.
I was like up there going to your mom and dad's church, working at the Olive Garden as a waiter,
Yeah.
and feeding people those breadsticks.
No.
And-
You were a little bread boy. You're like, I'm going back to my roots.
Back to the bread boy.
My
again.
loves.
So I meet this guy.
Would you like put your number in these ads? Did you put your name? Like,
Yeah, I think you had to put a phone number
put
in.
your phone
yeah.
number. Okay. Yeah.
Or there might have been like a place where people
meeting
could leave
place?
messages and then you'd access the messages and pick up your messages by calling in.
Romantic.
Was there not internet yet?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, so I met this guy, Barry, and I liked him. He was nice, very nice guy.
Mm-hmm.
And he taught me a lot. Actually, because I was like a total virgin, essentially.
You're like early 20s now.
I think it was like, actually, I wasn't even in my 20s. I was 19.
Okay.
And so I was clearly awful at what I was doing.
Yeah.
And he's like, here's a video. Sit down with this video and watch this.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm grateful for that. It taught me a lot.
Was it your first like gay porn experience too?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So I saw him for probably 3 or 4 months. I liked him. I mean, I wasn't like in love, but I liked him.
Like all around like a good solid like first experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
Showed you the ropes and whatever.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Not an aggressive, abusive person. Just a nice person.
Oh, we like that.
Yes,
Yeah.
I like that.
You finally got a W.
Yeah.
Oh my
Yes.
God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You deserved that for
Mm-hmm.
sure.
So he took me on a trip to the Oregon coast, and we were there for 5 days, and it was
romantic.
very romantic. It
Yeah.
was nice. And I get back from the trip, and my brother John was like,
My dad.
"Yeah," he's like,
Megan's
"Where were
dad.
you?" Megan's dad. And I said, "Oh, I was on a trip to the Oregon coast with some friends from work."
Mm-hmm.
And then Rachel's dad calls me the next day, and it's like, "Oh, so you were on a trip? Where'd you go?" "Oh, the Oregon coast." "Oh, who'd you go with?"
Talk about investigative journalism.
Yeah, and so I didn't even think about the sibling grapevine, which in my family is like one person knows and everybody knows, but I didn't know that at the time because I hadn't seen any of my siblings practically for like a decade, so
Yeah.
I didn't know about the sibling grapevine.
Yeah.
And so Eric calls me the next
Wow,
day.
you still hadn't seen them hardly, like during this whole time.
Not much
Wow.
at all.
But you
Yeah.
were seeing her die because you were living in Boise.
I was
now.
living there, yeah.
But my dad was still in California.
Yeah.
And my dad is what, 15 years older than you?
No, your dad's 11 years older
11
than me.
years? Okay.
And Eric is 10 years older than me. Actually,
Okay.
Eric and Jennifer had encouraged me, I think, to go live in Boise. I had gone and lived with them when you were born.
Oh, you were with us? when we
Yes,
were
I was
both
with you both when you were
Yeah.
born.
Yeah.
And because I remember because Rachel would be, and Eric was like obsessively like, "Rachel, what does the cow say? Rachel,
Which
Rachel,
you still say to me to
what
this
does the
day.
cow say?"
He likes to quiz me
Yes.
on animal sounds. I still know them.
And so, I was a mess, honestly. I mean, both of your dads will be the first to say I was a total mess.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that, Eric thought it would be easier for me to like find some pathway forward in Boise. Wasn't as expensive and whatever. So that's why I end up moving there.
But they call you.
But so Eric calls me and he's like, who'd you go with? And I said, I went with some people from church.
Oh, so you changed the story.
So then the next day, my sister Kathy calls me.
Oh my gosh.
And she says, so Eric and John are really worried because, this happened and I'm being evasive. And she just straight out says, Chris, are you gay? I'm like, what? And I didn't know what to say.
Yeah.
So I just said, yeah.
Oh.
First time saying it.
Wow.
And so she says, can I tell John and Eric? And I'm like, absolutely not. Nope. Can't do it. No.
Mm-hmm.
And I will preface this by saying, like, I never felt like I fit into my family.
Yeah.
And part of it's because of being gay, but I think in retrospect, part of it's because of the trauma that happened at 3.
Yeah.
Where I was constantly looking for people who was going to attack me.
Yeah.
And in our family, people are attacking you all the time. Like, your parents, your dads invented this game called Not a Game. And they could do whatever they wanted to you because you had not said not a game.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
To this day.
Yeah, to this day. And I remember Megan's dad, John, when they were in college, going to the second story window, and Eric was sunbathing, and he dropped a phone book on his head.
Oh, yeah.
Because he hadn't said not a game.
Could have friggin' killed him.
Yeah.
Like,
And-
our dads were absolute rapscallions.
Yes.
Yeah. And maybe perceived as bullies to you. Like, at that time, I could imagine.
I wouldn't say that I thought of them as bullies, but I definitely didn't feel safe. I didn't feel like, and I remember coming down to Southern California, I never felt like I knew how to fit in.
Yeah.
And I think it was because I was always looking for where an attack was going to come from. And in our family, those things that I was perceiving as attacks, even though they weren't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you're getting the belly button dance from Uncle Joe.
Exactly.
It's just constantly
Constant
aggressive.
attacks.
Well, also, there's like a lot of rejection too from like your dad, and just a lot of dynamics going on. So
Yeah.
I can
Yeah.
understand why. And you're locking yourself in your room, just like kind of being alone and isolated. And so,
Yeah.
just create a aura of I don't fit in and I don't belong anywhere.
And I definitely didn't want anyone to know that I was gay. And so it was like, absolutely not. You cannot tell them. No.
Yeah.
So what
You're not
happens?
comfortable being yourself.
Yeah.
And like being your full self.
Yep.
So yeah.
So what happens the next day? Eric shows up on my doorstep.
Oh my gosh.
Even though I'd said that she couldn't tell him. Obviously my sister did. And so, Rachel's dad is as emotional of a person, I think, as I probably am. We're both very emotional people. And he was not happy. And he was like, you're packing your things and you're coming back to California
Was
with
he
me.
angry or was he sad?
It came across as anger to me, but I don't know what it was. I mean, I could ask him.
It could have
but-
been like desperation or
yeah.
concern overall.
Concern. Yeah. Like
Yeah.
my brothers, I need to save him.
Well, I mean,
you know.
you'd been molested and you'd gone through so much. So I think they were just doing the best with what they had, obviously, but it hurts.
Yeah.
Still.
Yeah.
And
So
it's jarring.
I was blindsided, didn't
Yes.
expect him to be there. And then he's wanting me to pack. And I'm just like, no.
Yeah.
So he says, well, let's go to talk to John. So we go over to your house. And I remember we were in your dad's, I think it was an office or something. And we're talking. I'm just like, stoic because I'm absolutely
Shut down.
no, you're not going to make me do anything.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden I look over and John is bawling, like tears are coming down his eyes. And I don't think I've ever seen my brother John cry. So it was like,
I've only seen him cry one time.
yeah, super shock.
He's cried more as he's gotten older, but this also happened to me when I dated this boy. He really didn't want me to date, and I was like, nah. And then for the first time in my like teenage life, I saw my dad cry, and I was like, oh, okay, Dad,
This is serious.
I'm gonna listen to you. Like he pulled the cry card.
Yep.
So I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yes.
This is about Travis.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, in stark contrast to my dad and you, Uncle John is a lot more
Very stoic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Doesn't show a lot of emotion. Very sarcastic, brash. Yeah, he's different. So to see him cry must have been...
Interestingly, though, like I feel like he's an emotional person.
Oh, totally.
He's not emotionally disconnected, but he just has a very dry sense of humor.
Yeah.
So I wasn't expecting that. And then I start crying and Eric starts crying and we're all crying.
Oh, God.
And then it's like...
Bunch of babies.
Just a bunch of gay boys crying.
And they said that, mom told them that, to, on her deathbed to protect me. And so, it's like, okay, so
Felt a sense of duty.
I agreed to go back to California. And from there, it was weird. I really have no clue what happened over the next 6 months. I went to Southern California. And then from there, I went to Washington to live with my brother Joe. And then from there, I went to Alaska to live with my sister Kathy.
They're just passing the gay brother off to all of them.
It was like gay brother pass around.
Any loaves of bread?
No loaves
Any
of
farms?
bread. No.
Okay.
But definitely.
Who can make this man straight?
That's right. Somebody help me.
But the weight gain did come back, didn't it?
The weight gain did come back, yes.
I remember my parents always tell the story of you eating a bunch of cookies on the couch all the time.
Oh, it's a running joke in their household still to this day. I think mostly Connor does it, but it'd be like, I would come home with an entire package of Chewy Chips Ahoy cookie after working, and then I'd come and sit and watch TV with them, and then I'd say, "Want a cookie?" As one does if they're polite. Like I don't want to eat things in front of people and not offer them one. Yeah. And so to this day, especially Connor, but Eric and Jennifer too, want a cookie?
Yep.
So I don't know why.
Passing off the brother around.
I don't know why I was being passed around so much. I ended up in Alaska with my sister, and like in December, they come to me. It was like a phone call. I remember, and I was there with Kathy, and they tell me they found this place that they want me to go to, and it's like this Christian ex-gay de-gaying kind of place,
like a conversion.
And I wouldn't say that I wanted to go there, like.
Yeah.
But I also didn't feel like I had any choices because the situation, what it was, I no longer had a home and I no longer had a job. Mm-hmm. So like if I say no,
then what are you doing?
I don't know what happens.
Yeah.
Honestly, it didn't seem like my siblings would just dump me. I didn't think they would. Yeah. But I still didn't know what I would do if I said no to this. So, it was definitely kind of, I definitely felt that. But there also was, because I had grown up in this really religious church, like very dogmatic, I did want to know what God wanted for my life. Like I didn't know. I mean, I was just as confused, well, more probably confused as anybody. So there was a part of me that was like, okay, well, maybe I'll find something out. I don't know. So I went into it with that perspective, and I agreed to go. It was a year-long program.
That's long.
And you're living with 15 other gay boys.
Sorry. Like, what do you expect to happen?
It sounds like a recipe for miracles. Miracles, I say.
A recipe for miracles. Sure does.
What a great way to meet men, though, at this point.
To go from the army to this. Like, what a pipeline.
And the funny thing was that there was one, I'm still friends with him today. He was a former drag queen and very effeminate. I'd never met anybody who was gay other than the guy that I dated.
Yeah.
And I'd never met anybody like effeminately gay.
Yeah.
And so I learned so much. Yeah. And I remember I was walking home from church in this program one time, and I did this like arm movement where I was just like that. And I'm like, what just happened to my hand? Like, oh my gosh.
Like you got gayer?
I got gayer.
It's a spelling for my limbs now.
Whoa, what happened here?
You were like doing...
And that was the first time I had facial mask and all sorts of things, got a skincare regime. Yeah.
You went to gay conversion therapy and somehow came out gayer.
What was it like though? And was there ever a moment where you're like, maybe I'm not gay? Or did going to that camp really cement it? What was the experience like?
I definitely knew I was gay in the sense that I knew what my attractions were.
Yeah.
I didn't know if I could also have those attractions with women.
Mm-hmm.
So I just didn't know what was what.
Yeah.
I knew I know this, but I don't know if this is off the table for me or.
There wasn't a lot of talk about bisexual or anything back then. There weren't a lot of
No, yeah.
general terms for these things either, I guess.
Yeah, and the mindset definitely was, even if you have these feelings, it doesn't matter.
Right.
Right.
You're supposed to be with a woman.
Right.
And so it doesn't matter whether you have bisexual feelings. To them, it literally was you're supposed to be with a woman.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you have these feelings. You just have to learn how to control these feelings and be with a woman.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, gee, lucky women.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We don't want them.
I really remember thinking, because
Be with a man. You want a man.
I was like, I'm sorry. I think a woman deserves to be with somebody who's in love with them.
Yeah.
thinks
And
they're
attracted
hot
to them.
Yeah.
And wants to please them.
Totally.
Not just
Ew.
Faking
a
it.
friend who's not into them.
Right.
Yeah.
Hey, we're best buds, but I'm
So
not that into
true.
you. So yeah. So for me, when I remember we started going around there and they asked everybody to state what they were there for. Mm-hmm. What is your purpose in being here on New Year's Eve? And everybody before me was basically just saying, I want to be with a woman. I want to get married. I want to, be straight. Da, da, da. I don't know. It just didn't jibe with me.
Yeah.
And so what I said was, I want to find out what God wants for my life. And I really think that actually happened. I think that framing of it for me, instead of trying to make myself be straight, it was really just focusing in this time for the 2.5 years I was actually there.
You were there for 2.5 years?
2.5
years.
Wow. Yeah. And so during that time, I really just focused on spirituality, my personal relationship with God.
Yeah.
I then later learned is not bound by religion. Mm-hmm. And so, I actually got a lot out of that aspect of it. Mm-hmm. And I think, in a sense, it's like having a higher intention for why you're doing something. I didn't really know a lot about that at the time, but I can see in retrospect, wow, that really framed it for me. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
Do you want to talk about, I feel like I think I read it in your trauma timeline of you did have an experience, or was that later? When you were singing a song or something? And
yeah. Yeah, that was later.
Okay.
That was when I came out. I will say the very first year that I was in this program was actually a lot of fun. Mm-hmm. I made great friends who I still have to this day.
That's great.
That's cool. And they're all out?
All except one.
Okay.
One of them got married and has kids.
Okay.
Great for him.
Yeah.
No, to me, I looked at it.
Maybe
again,
he was bi.
That's what I was just going to say. It's like, hey, great. If you have these attractions, wonderful.
Yeah.
So, so we had a very gay time doing all sorts of things. I discovered things like the movie Steel Magnolias. If you've seen that, if you haven't, you should. We quoted it all the time. Definitely the gayest movie about women ever made. Yeah. And I think it's written by a gay man, actually.
Really?
Oh my gosh.
I've seen it. It's been a while.
We still quote it. It's
kind of nice for you to actually not having spent any time with any other gay men other than the person you dated to have this community under a weird pretense of we're here to try to be straight, but
and it was weird too, in the sense that you couldn't leave this apartment unless you were with two other people. It had to be groups of 3 or more.
Well, that can still be a fun time.
That's right. They weren't thinking about that. But it's like if we were alone by ourselves, we might jump into the bushes somewhere.
Right.
So,
But 3 men would do that.
Accountability.
Listen, they didn't know what threesomes were yet.
it was very strange. Like we had our whole lives structured. We got jobs that had to be 9 to 5. We'd get off the jobs. We'd have dinner, prayer time, Bible study, class on how to be less gay. And most of the time, comically, it had to do with this idea that you didn't have a good connection with your dad and you didn't learn how to be a man. So we're going to try and teach you how to be a man.
So you went out and like chopped wood and shit.
The problem is that it's gay guys trying to teach other gay guys how to be a man. And here I am, like it came from varsity sports, growing up with 4 brothers, loved football, loved all sorts of things. And I went into the army.
Yeah.
I was not effeminate in any way at all.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of comical. Like I actually said, I'm like, no, you're doing that wrong. You know, that's no, that's not how it goes. So it really, to me, it's like, I was like the exception that kept saying, that doesn't apply to me, right? Like they'd be like, oh, this is why you're gay. Oh, no, sorry, that doesn't apply to me.
We're not quite sure why Chris is gay.
He's an anomaly.
A masculine gay man, impossible.
Yeah.
So
He played football in high school. There's no way.
Don't forget the Shakespeare pies.
Don't forget the Shakespeare pies.
How did you end up leaving then? Did
So-
you have to like convince them you were straight?
no,
Or was it?
So it's like year by year, and you make an agreement to be there for that amount of time. So I finished 2 years. After that, I went into this sort of like halfway house kind of place, which wasn't a year by year thing. It was, you're still on this, it was still a group of gay men in this house, but it wasn't the program. And so I was still going to the same church. I was actually training to be like a youth pastor. I'd sort of been the poster child of this program for like 2 years because I was the good boy who never fooled around with any of the other boys there because I was only attracted to older men and there weren't any there. So I got to be like, oh, I'm so good.
I'm perfect.
All you other whores are out there doing what you're doing. And I'm the good one. And so like I was on the worship team and I was being trained by the pastor to be a youth pastor.
Yeah.
And I really saw myself going down this path.
Yeah.
And it aligned with what what was important to me of trying to help people. So I'm like, okay, great. And then I'm in this worship session at church one Sunday. And I would say that the first spiritual experience as an adult that had me realize that something was different about me, but also about God and about spirituality. I had this like out of body experience where I just was gone and we were singing the hymn Just As I Am. And all of a sudden it was like everything disappeared. And I can't really describe it because it was like all senses. It wasn't like hearing God or seeing God, or it was like everything, but it was essentially God saying to me, this is it, just as you are. Like there is nothing you can do and nothing that you can not do that will have me love you any more than I love you right now. And it was so real and powerful. Like I felt it in my bones. Like I came out of this out of body experience and was just like, whoa. And it just had me realize like, whether or not I'm gay, whether or not I choose this or not, is not going to have God love me more.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I still have the choice, but it's not going to make one bit of difference as to how loved I am by God.
Yeah.
So that really helped me. Like, it allowed me to start exploring. Like, I went to like a gay affirming church, and they did like it was an experiment. They were having a session on the verses in the Bible that so so-called verses in the Bible that pertain to homosexuality.
Yeah.
And so we get there, and they literally went through all of it, and they basically were just saying, this is what you're being told, but there are all these other translations, like for centuries, that have come from this. There is no one translation that is irrefutably the answer.
Yeah.
Nobody knows.
Yeah.
And they weren't trying to say that they had the answer. They weren't trying to say it's okay to be gay. They were just saying there's nothing here. Like they're saying this is here, that this is horrible and wrong, but they don't have any proof for it. It's just what they're choosing. And so it's like, that's weird. So I went to the pastor who was training me to be the youth pastor in this church, and I asked him, and oh my gosh, he just lost his shit. He like really got mad at me and was like shouting at me. Okay, not what I thought would happen.
Yeah.
And so I went to the guy who ran the program that I was in, who I really had a lot of love for. And to this day, I thank him. Thank you, Frank Worthen. He said to me, he's like, they're right. They're right. We don't have these answers. We're choosing to believe what we think is God's will. And I can't prove it to you, and nobody can. And it was like this light bulb went off in my head, like, what the hell? Like, this isn't what you've been telling me. I wasn't told that I had any choice in this. It was just like, this is what it shall be, you gay pervert. Not that they said that.
Yeah.
But yeah,
And
the whole premise of the camp or the place that you were just kind of like obliterated.
Yeah. And so I was like, oh, wow, I get to decide this. Interesting. So I came out, and I remember having the assistant.
You came out as in like came out?
Yeah.
Oh.
Like, I just was like, I left the halfway house that I was in.
Yeah.
And I came out.
Oh.
And I just, so I was excommunicated. Like no one was allowed to talk to me. No, all the friends that I had at that time wasn't allowed to be involved with them at all. Except there's my one friend who I still give shit about this, Larry, who we call the poodle. And he was hiding it. So we actually both had newspaper ads. And we actually both dated the same guy within 1 week of each other.
Oh, wow.
Uh-oh.
And I found this out because we were living at this halfway house.
Yeah.
And I picked up the phone, and it was, I hadn't dialed the number yet, but it was the lady who's the lady for the call system that I call and to get my messages. It was literally the same thing. I was like, what the heck? And Larry goes, oh shit, and hangs up the phone. And so then, you know, we end up finding out. I said, I was like, Larry, I have something on the same site. So we both knew that this is what we were doing. I was moving out and being out as a gay man. Larry kept doing this for like 6 months while still having access to all of our friends and getting to do the fun things we got to do with all of our friends. I was definitely bitter. I was like, you jerk.
Yeah.
But then when he finally did come out, we moved in together as roommates, not as anything romantic.
Yeah.
And we were roommates for a couple years and had a lot of fun.
Were you in your early 20s at this point? So when I came out, I was 23.
And what was going on with their family at this time when you came out?
They definitely didn't like that I came out.
Yeah.
Like, did you call them and tell them you were leaving the camp or the place?
I
Should
did.
we call it a camp? What are we calling it?
The program.
The program.
Yeah, that's better. I keep calling it a camp.
That's what
Program.
all of us who were in it called it. The program.
Yes.
And so, you know, they didn't like that I was leaving it. Kathy called me up all the time crying, and everybody was trying to like convince me that this was wrong. For me, I just took it all as rejection.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
And for me, with the lens of like people are attacking me, right, from childhood, rejection now was my new form of being attacked.
Yeah.
And so for me, I took it as if I was being attacked, which isn't the case. Rejection, yeah, it's different. But that's how it occurred for me. So I really kind of isolated from myself, from my family for a long time. My dad also my dad had been like coming up to try and do like therapy sessions with me to like, because they said that the reason was that I didn't have a connection with my dad. So I'll give him credit. He came up and tried to work through things with me, and we got a lot closer from that. And I remember having this conversation with my dad where he was telling me that even if I had these feelings, I just needed, even if I didn't want to be with a woman, I just needed to be celibate for the rest of my life.
Oh, wow.
He was the one who started dating a month after his wife died because he didn't want to be celibate.
Yeah.
And so I said to him, interesting that you would say that, Dad, because the Bible has a whole lot more to say about divorce than it has to say about homosexuality.
Ew.
And according to the Bible, you're not supposed to have sex with another woman because you got divorced without adultery being the reason by your spouse.
Does it say that in the Bible?
Therefore, you're not supposed to be married. You're supposed to be celibate for the rest of your life too.
Wow, mic
was
drop.
It was like quiet.
Oh, shit.
He did not say anything for a while. And then I think the conversation just changed.
Uh-huh.
And it never came up again. But, it definitely is like so maddening to me to like see the Bible says so many things about divorce, marriage, all these different things.
Yeah.
And everybody is just like, oh, that's
So
fine.
Cherry picking.
Yeah.
No, it's fine now because we're the majority.
Yeah.
Oh, you're the minority. So this, no, you get punished and ostracized and rejected. And
I also had a professor. I went to a Bible college, but I was pretty conservative in high school, and it opened my eyes a lot of different still being religious, but viewing things in a different way. And he taught me a lot about the context in which the Bible was written. And like knowing that at the time the Bible was written, there was no such thing as like a loving homosexual relationship.
didn't exist.
There was no family unit. There was no two men together. It was always done in this kind of like secrecy, younger boys in the temple. It was prostitutes. It just had all of this like negative connotation and like, men cheating on their wives with younger boys. That's not good.
Yeah. Like the Bible verse says, thou shalt not sleep with another man as you would with your wife or something like that. It's like,
there was no husbands and husbands. And so it's like, and the very few verses that were written about it, like that's what I remember my professor telling me that. And I was like, whoa. And
there weren't any words for it either.
No.
So like versions of the Bible that you see now that use that word are just completely wrong.
Yeah. Like the linguistics of it too is like a whole nother layer.
Yep.
Just as a side note. Yeah. But that's an interesting conversation with your dad for sure.
It was an interesting conversation with my dad. And so my family never cut me off. I will be so incredibly grateful to them for the rest of my life for that. I have friends from that program whose families literally did cut them off.
Wow.
One friend whose family cut him off, he went crazy, like just really started having an unhealthy amount of sex. I mean, he went off the deep end.
Yeah.
And he ended up getting HIV. And I blame his family. Honestly, to me, it's like, they did that to you. I know he made his own decisions, but it was just like, it's crazy the stuff that is done in the name of Jesus, who's like the most loving person in history, and yet this is supposed to be in the name of Jesus. It's bizarre to me. So I remember when I came out, like one of the assistant house directors, another guy who was an ex-gay guy, he took me to lunch and was talking. He started getting more and more mad that I was coming out. And he said, you might as well just go and make up your own religion because you're not a Christian anymore. And at the time I was like, well, that's bullshit.
Yeah.
But then as time went by, I was like, that's actually pretty accurate. Interesting. Like, I still consider myself to be Christian, but I've explored all sorts of other religions and I've explored all sorts of different thought concepts. And it's like, oh, I like this, or, oh, that makes sense. I like that. And I've like incorporated them in to the personal relationship and connection that I have
Yeah.
that isn't bound by religion.
Yeah.
So that's been really, ever since I came out, that's been like this really eye-opening thing that started me toward the path of therapy, recovering, development, things like that.
Yeah.
So I basically had about 10 years where I wasn't connected to my family.
After
Very
this
much.
conversation with Grandpa King and him kind of telling you, and sibling Aunt Kathy crying and
Yeah.
things like that, you kind
Yeah.
of just were like, I'm going to just remove myself.
I'm done. Yeah. And I remember having like, and this is a common theme in the gay community, Friendsgiving. You know, it's like your
chosen
friends
family.
are your family.
Yeah.
So that really was like the thing for me. And it wasn't that my family, rejected me.
Yeah.
But to me, it felt like attack to constantly be dealing with this all the time.
And defending who you are and your life choices and who you're talking to and who you love and all these things.
Yep. And our family is also like extremely political. and so I couldn't at the time separate politics and being gay.
Yeah.
And every time they would talk about politics, it felt like an attack on me as a gay person.
Yeah.
And I would get offended.
Yeah.
Way more than like most people who talk about politics, because for me, it was like an attack on me personally, which wasn't how any of them were intending it, but that's just how it was occurring for me.
Right.
So I just didn't want to be around it. I didn't. And so consequently, it caused, me to lose a lot of time with family. And then I would say it's like 10 years later, I get a call from Eric, Rachel's dad, and he wants to meet with me. And so I agreed to do it. And we met in Long Beach at this park.
And you're probably like 30.
Oh, I was like 34.
Okay.
Yeah. And so we're talking and he's trying to understand. I remember him asking me, he's like, so if that girl right there with the big breasts didn't have her shirt on, you wouldn't even notice? And I'm like, no. I'm like, of course I would notice. It just wouldn't give me a boner. I'm like,
Oh.
Just really trying to understand, like, Dad.
Okay.
so it was like the
Boobs are just invisible to me as a gay man. They're just invisible.
I'm actually quite a fan of boobs. I'm just not turned on by them.
You can appreciate them.
That's right. Yes, exactly. So that was kind of the beginning, though. Like he said to me, what I did at the time, like, would I do it again? I probably would have in that space, but where I am now, no. Like he's like, I don't know what the answers are. And I just know that I want you to be my brother. I don't want you to not be in my life anymore.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of the beginning of, and at that point, like I moved back to Orange County as well. So it was a lot easier to connect with Eric and his family. And then that was how I ended up started working with Rachel.
So how old were you, Rachel, when you first started connecting with Uncle Chris?
I was probably like 4. How much older are you than me? You're like,
Megan
20
was,
years older than me?
I was in Idaho and I was 18, like right around the time when Megan was born. Or you were like 1
Yeah.
when I was 18. So I guess like, yeah.
Like a teenager.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like 14 or 15 probably when he started coming back around.
And so, and so then Eric, just kind of randomly on my mom's birthday called me up and was like, hey, I'm going up to mom's grave. Do you want to go with me? And I hadn't been to her grave since I was a teenager. So I was like, yeah, I never even thought I'd never been living in that area before. So So I'm like, yeah. So we went to our mom's grave, and we were there for a while. And then Eric just kind of said, I know you haven't been here a while. I want to give you some time on your own to just spend time with mom. I'm going to go. And I had my own car. We drove separately.
Yeah.
And so for whatever reason, just had this, I'd been I don't want to go into it too much, but in college, I'd had some issues with anxiety attacks. I had a major anxiety attack, and somebody had introduced me to meditation and energy work as a way to handle your own stuff.
Yeah.
Not be able to help yourself so that you don't have these symptoms. So I'd been working through things with meditation for like the 4 years prior. So I just decided I was going to lay down on my mom's grave, and I started meditating, and I visualized myself fitting in between her pelvis like when I was a baby. And all of a sudden my mom spoke to me and was just like, Chris, you need to forgive Jeanette.
Wow.
And it's like, yeah, I know. I mean, that'll happen someday. And she's like, no, you're here on my grave on my birthday. You're going to forgive her right now. And I was just like,
I love the mom sternness.
okay. I guess I'm
Nice to
doing
hear
this.
from you, Mom.
Hello there.
You're just telling me what to do. Jeez.
Not a how are you?
Yeah.
So I went through this whole thing, and I visualized, like I thought back through everything, when I have, I also have had like prophetic dreams, like Rachel has talked about. I've had visions. When I do meditation, it's a very visual thing for me. So I had this vision of myself laying on her grave and this flower growing out of my chest, and then like it bloomed. And then all of a sudden, all these seedlings came out of it, which were all of the things that I'd been holding on to regarding Jeanette. And when it happened, my whole body seized up. Like it was like convulsions. And it was weird. And then I came out of it, and I was like, wow. Like I felt so much lighter. I felt like this weight had been dropped.
Yeah.
And so I made this decision. I was like, I'm going to keep doing this. So I just decided that I was going to seek out everybody in my life that I harbored grudges against or was upset with or that I'd hurt. And I went and either asked for forgiveness or expressed that I wanted to have forgiveness in this relationship. And it went on for like a year. And I remember specifically your mom and dad started referring to me as new Chris. And like, oh no, they'd be talking about some memory. They'd be like, oh, that was old Chris.
No.
So it was like literal transformation. Like I literally became a different person. And then that was like kind of the place where we started, Rachel and I working together, shaving ice and
Taking names.
shaving ice and taking names.
Shaving ice and shaking ass.
Shaving ice and shaking ass. At elementary school.
I love it.
My humps. Check it out. And yeah, it was interesting because I remember having a conversation. I actually think it was the same time that we had the My Humps thing. And we were talking. Oh, I know what it was. I know what it was. This is one of my proudest moments as an adult. Megan was getting married. She was engaged. So this was the age that you were, because Megan was engaged to get married, and she had not included you in her wedding party. And Rachel was like crushed. And so I remember her like saying, well, I said, you should say something. And she was like, well, no, I can't do that. I mean, if she did anything, it'd just be guilt or something. So, say anything. And I remember being like, no, I don't know if I said no, but it was like that energy. It was like, I literally have not been connected to my family for the last 10 years because of this grudge that I've held, this unresolved thing. And like, if you don't talk to Megan, you guys are just going to grow apart. You need to talk to her. And I like started crying. Like it was emotional. I was crying. It was like the John cry.
Yeah.
Right? It was like this. I was like, you have to talk to her. And I was like, I've missed out on the amazingness that is you because I just decided to not to remove myself. And I just like teared up like how much I missed of your life and all your lives by removing myself. So,
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
So and then Rachel talked to you,
Yeah.
and I was like, "Hey, I did something good! Yay!"
It was like during a time when I was in college. I think we like slowly drifted apart when I moved to Seattle and I was with my ex and just got very entrenched in school. And it was just this like kind of natural drift apart, but there wasn't like anything specific that happened. And it was just like a big wake up call when you did reach out to me. And I was like, oh my God, shit. Like really this, and we like reconnected really fast. And like you were a bridesmaid at my wedding and you'll be my maid of honor in my next one.
Yeah. No, I'm glad I said something too, because I don't know. It would have been one of those things forever that like maybe we just never talked about, or like, I don't know. I wouldn't have been
Or maybe I don't know how, if we would have, I mean, probably eventually, but I don't know if we would have been as close again that quickly.
Yeah.
If you hadn't reached out when I was just kind of in my own, like I was in my own world my senior year, engaged, just like kind of underwater and overwhelmed, but just like not, it's like very preoccupied on myself and what was in front of me. Yeah, and I came out and visited you quickly after that happened.
Yeah, that's true.
I might have seen you at that point.
It's like
too,
that
Uncle
movie
Chris.
Sliding Doors. Did you ever see that Gwyneth Paltrow movie?
You did see him. I think we stayed at your house. Yeah, she did come out and we stayed at your house. I think we were watching
Watching Buddy?
Yeah.
Yeah, my dog at the time.
So maybe she didn't see you, but we were staying at your house. If you were gone.
Yeah, that could be. It was a weird timeline because there was like my ex, and then broke up with my ex, my wolf, which we won't go into right now, and then and then Ted and I met. But yeah,
Yeah. But yeah, you were instrumental in that.
I know. I was like, hey,
because you were in this.
I won't take credit for it, but I'll just say it made me happy.
It was
to
a
be
little
nudge.
Yeah.
I helped my nieces.
Yeah.
Yeah. And because you were in such a like a forgiveness mode of like life's too short. Let's not hold on to things or just reach out.
For sure. Aww. So then that really was just like all about reconnecting with my family in that time and space. And like I've done a lot of work on personal development since then. And I would say that now, in terms of family, like we're all completely reconnected, which is kind of wild to me. Like I talk with pretty much all of my siblings almost every day. You know, part of that's times now as opposed to times then. But in terms of social media and stuff, like more access. But I definitely would not have been in text threads with my siblings back before. So it's it's nice to be able to have that level of forgiveness, to work through things, to realize that the things that people did in certain times of their lives were them doing the best that they knew how to at that time. And it might not have been a very good choice, but it was the best that they knew how. And then like time goes by and they learn a different. And so like I had a very amazing conversation with Jeanette right before my dad died. I went up to see him and try and help him, relearn how to walk because he'd had a stroke. And Jeanette pulled me aside and was like, I need to talk with you. Okay. So we go into this room and she had my younger sister, Grace, who she'd had with my dad, and she wanted Grace to be in the room. And she apologized to me for what had happened when I was a teenager. And I kind of poo-pooed it. I was sort of just like, oh yeah, I've already forgiven you. And she was just like, no, I need to say this. I was not a good mother to you, and you needed a mother. And she didn't pull any punches. She like went down the list and just owned all of it.
Wow.
And I was blown away. I was floored and apologized. And we just got like so close and connected in that moment. Like I'm actually close. I feel close and connected to her now.
Yeah.
Like I love her. And I wouldn't say that I had that at all, access to that in my whole life prior to my mom instructing me to forgive her.
Yeah.
Yeah, I almost feel like your mom like knew that relationship was going to repair, but you needed to forgive her first.
Yeah.
But she like could almost feel it. Like,
In a sense, like in order for me to even be able to hear her
right
apology, I had to already have forgiven her.
To let it go.
Yeah.
Aww.
Let it go.
Let it go.
Yeah. So it's been a journey, family journey of forgiveness on all of our parts, really.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I know your siblings have had their own things to work through in terms of figuring things out about my gayness. Your father sent me a Christmas mug one year that's a big giant rainbow flag, and it says, "Shh, nobody knows I'm gay."
Was that my dad or
My dad.
That was Eric.
Rachel's dad?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Like he likes to, roast you and think. Like I think you guys bond over the humor of it.
Yeah.
That was actually the first time when I really felt comfortable talking to Eric again about gayness, when he cracked his first joke about me being gay, because I was like, okay,
That's how you know.
this is no longer taboo. We can joke about this now.
Traumedy brings us all together.
Yes, that's right.
Comedy runs in the family.
It does.
For sure.
And now, like, my parents were at Ted's birthday party last night, and like, like a lot of we had some complications of family trying to come.
Yeah. My parents were definitely going to be there, but they couldn't.
Yeah,
And Rachel's dad recited a poem on Ted's behalf.
he did.
That really is so sweet, thinking about 30 years ago and 20 years ago, and then Eric giving a
Accepting
poem.
and loving of your partner and supportive and celebrating his birthday and coming out here for the weekend for it. What would you say to somebody who is like you, who is like scared to come out and what their family might say or anything like that? And then on the flip side, what would you say to family members who have had somebody come out and they maybe are like struggling with it, or they don't know how to proceed, or because of religious things or whatever? Like, what would you say on both sides?
So, I mean, if you're having feelings and you don't feel like there's anyone that you can talk to, I would say, first of all, find somebody that you can talk to.
Find a Thelonious.
Yes, or a therapist.
Yes.
Find somebody to talk to. You're not alone. There are so many people out there who will support you in discovering who you are. So don't allow fear to keep you from talking to somebody. Overcome that. Get out there and talk about it. And then that will in turn help you to find your way, I think. And for people who maybe have somebody in their family coming out and they don't know how to deal with it, for me, I would just say, like, in a sense, kind of what your dad did, Rachel, which was, I don't have the answers. I thought I did. I thought I had the answers, but I don't. I mean, I've been raised this way. And even this is what I might even choose to believe. I might choose to believe that this is wrong, but I don't have it as an answer. And because I don't have all the answers, I'm going to love you and support you in who you are and who you're becoming, whatever decisions that you make. It's ultimately, like, love is the most important thing. And talking
and that
about
is
things.
biblical.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Maybe
definitely.
choosing to like put your own that you feel so like righteous and your own morals and your beliefs aside for like, no, there's a person in front of me who's just asking me to accept them and love them for who they are.
Exactly.
And that's more important than like isolating them because I maybe, don't understand or agree.
Yeah.
It doesn't fucking matter at the end of the day. Like, just love and accept the person that's in front of you, asking them to.
And just like we started with the timeline of Traumedy, there's a timeline of recovery.
Yeah.
And you can't like make somebody recover when you want them to recover.
Yeah.
Like, do this and you'll be better. It doesn't work that way. They have to figure things out on their own. And so supporting them and loving them with whatever it is that they're going through while they're doing that.
Yeah.
So
that's great. We have to end with a song.
Which one?
We need Phantom of the Opera, or maybe My Humps.
Oh yes.
Okay. I drive these fuckers crazy. I do it on the daily. They treat me very nicely. They buy me all these ices. Dolce and Gabbana, Fendi and Madonna, and in jeans, true religion.
I say no, but they keep giving.
And keep on taking. You keep on taking. Keep on demonstrating.
My humps, my humps, my humps, my humps, my humps, and lady lumps. Check it out.
They got me spending.
Oh, spending all the money on me and spending time on me.
Ladies got me spending.
Oh, spending all the money on me.
What you gonna do with all that junk? All that junk is drunk. I'm gonna get you drunk, get you love drunk off my humps. All right.
Thank you, Fergie.
Thank you for coming on the Traumedy Show, Uncle Chris.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's an honor to have you on.
It's been a pleasure.
As a reminder, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts, and follow us on social media at the.traumedy.show.
Bye.
Bye.
Oh, that was so